Much, Senator Ernst.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And today is a solemn day of remembrance. So thank you very much, General, for remembering those that lost their lives on 9/11, as well as those first responders and those that have served in the global war on terrorism. Thanks for the time that we were able to spend together in the office discussing a number of priorities. I'd like to start with the announcement of the pending National Defense Strategy. What it is doing is making clear that defending the homeland is the department's top priority. And that includes protecting our critical infrastructure, strengthening, of course, our missile defenses, and enhancing our cyber resilience. Those will really be at the forefront of our efforts. And in this mission, it does appear that the National Guard and the reserves will be an indispensable part of that equation. We know that these forces are uniquely positioned to defend the homeland, not only through disaster response, but also in emerging domains like cyber and space. And of course, I'm very partial to the National Guard and the reserves, having served in both of those. I know firsthand how vital it is in their contributions to our national defense. So, General Mahoney, with the upcoming National Defense Strategy placing that renewed emphasis on our homeland defense, how do you plan to ensure that the mission remains front and center as threats continue to grow and evolve?
Thanks, Senator. And I think the primacy of the homeland has been a key tenet of our strategies going back at least as far as 2018. And I think it has to be that way. The military reason that it needs to be that way is it must be considered as a power projection platform. You can't push off a platform that is faulty. You can't push off a foundation that is weak. And all of the attributes that you talked about have to be strengthened and fortified. Going to the Guard and Reserve, as I mentioned earlier, I have never been in a situation deployed or otherwise or contingent or combat where guardsmen and reserves weren't a big part of the picture. So to strengthen that aspect of it, not only for the homeland, but to play the away game as well is important.
No, I appreciate that very much. And just reminding people that the reason our great United States came to be, the reason our colonies came together as states and formed the great United States of America was for the common defense of our nation. So it's incredibly important that our military is positioned to defend our homeland. What role do you envision for the National Guard and our great reservists out there as they're playing a role in building a resilience against these threats, both here in the homeland and abroad?
I don't think you can realistically talk about an integrated joint approach without bringing in the Guard and Reserve. And recent history is replete with that point. So what I would say is, I know that statutorily and policy-wise, there is a differentiation between Guard, Reserve, and active. But when we look at the total force, the integrated force, and Chairman Kane as the integrator, this is a whole. This is a single demographic of combat power. Once again, whether it's at home or away.
Yeah, thank you. We have talked extensively this morning about the Defense Industrial Base and its revitalization. That is really important in order to deliver upon the safety for our great United States. We have to make sure that we have the platforms and the munitions that are available. So I'm just going to make a plug. We have facilities in Iowa, like the Iowa Army Ammunition Plant, which will be an important part of delivering munitions for our military. Also, the Rock Island Arsenal, which is situated, it actually belongs to Illinois, but is situated in the Mississippi River, dividing Iowa and Illinois, making sure that we're able to expand production and support those facilities will be very important in the future. So how do you plan to ensure that that industrial base can meet the demand for these critical systems while also sustaining support for our allies? In a very brief answer, please.
If confirmed as the chairman of the JROC, I will make sure that the defense industrial base is a leading consideration from requirements to resources.
And I will take it. I have no time remaining. Thank you very much. I look forward to supporting your confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
At a Senate Armed Services Committee confirmation hearing for the Vice Chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on Thursday, Senator Joni Ernst, Republican Iowa, used her time to spotlight the growing challenges of Homeland defense and the role of the National Guard and Reserves in America's military posture. Speaking to General Christopher J. Mahoney, the nominee for the post, Ernst balanced a solemn acknowledgement of the 9/11 anniversary with pressing questions about the future of U.S. defense strategy. She began by honoring those who lost their lives in the September 11th attacks, the first responders who risked everything that day, and the men and women who later served in the global war on terrorism. Against that backdrop, she transitioned to today's threats, emphasizing that the forthcoming national defense strategy clearly names the defense of the homeland as the Department of Defense's top priority. For Ernst, that priority must translate into concrete action, protecting critical infrastructure, maintaining and advancing missile defense systems, and strengthening cyber resilience against increasingly sophisticated adversaries. Central to this mission, Ernst argued, are the National Guard and Reserve forces. Drawing on her own service in both, she underlined how these components provide a unique bridge between civilian society and the active-duty military. Beyond their well-known role in disaster response, they are increasingly called upon in emerging domains such as cyber defense and space operations. They are indispensable, Ernst said, describing their contributions as essential to defending not only the homeland but also to supporting missions overseas. General Mahoney echoed her assessment, noting that Homeland defense has been a cornerstone of U.S. military strategy since at least 2018. He stressed that the United States cannot project power abroad without a strong foundation at home. You can't push off a platform that is faulty. You can't push off a foundation that is weak, he said, pointing out that Guardsmen and reservists have been present in every deployment or combat situation he has witnessed throughout his decades of service. To Mahoney, the Guard and Reserves are not separate add-ons but integral to the total force concept, an integrated pool of combat power that includes active duty, reserve, and Guard units working as one. Ernst reminded those present that the principle of common defense has guided the nation since its founding. The colonies originally banded together to defend against threats, and that spirit remains embedded in the military's responsibility today. For her, reinforcing homeland security is not a bureaucratic priority but a continuation of the very purpose for which the United States came into being. The conversation then shifted to America's defense industrial base, which has faced growing scrutiny amid rising global tensions and supply chain challenges. Ernst stressed that America's ability to maintain security depends not only on strategy and manpower, but also on the production capacity to deliver weapons, munitions, and equipment at scale. She cited two facilities tied to Iowa, the Iowa Army Ammunition Plant and the Rock Island Arsenal, as examples of critical infrastructure that must be fully supported to keep pace with demand. These sites, she argued, are not only essential for U.S. readiness but also for fulfilling commitments to allies abroad. General Mahoney responded with a pledge to make the industrial base a central factor in decision-making if confirmed. He committed to ensuring that considerations about production capacity and supply lines remain at the forefront of discussions on requirements and resources. In his words, revitalizing the industrial base would not be treated as a secondary issue but as a leading concern tied directly to national security outcomes. Underlying the exchange was the unspoken but clear context of America's strategic competition with China. While not mentioned by name in this portion of the hearing, the themes of homeland defense, cyber resilience, and industrial production all connect to concerns about Beijing's expanding capabilities. From cyber intrusions targeting U.S. infrastructure to the People's Liberation Army's rapid military modernization, the broader defense community has increasingly warned that America must harden itself at home in order to remain effective abroad. As the hearing drew to a close, Ernst made it clear she intends to support Mahoney's confirmation, praising his answers and reaffirming the importance of the issues raised. Her line of questioning reflected both her personal connection to the Guard and her long-standing advocacy for strengthening America's defense base, particularly in the Midwest. The exchange underscored a recurring theme in U.S. defense planning, the need to balance global commitments with a secure foundation at home. For Ernst and Mahoney, that means not only preparing for overseas challenges but also ensuring that America's infrastructure, military readiness, and industrial capacity are strong enough to withstand the pressures of a rapidly changing world.